going to show you 6 ways for you to check the cutting of the shears after you've sharpened them. And I'm going to show you one of the new things that I've added when I'm in the salon sharpening shears, and I'll tell you why. Now this is the crazy pair of shears I showed in a previous video. There's a link up at the top. You can see it up there. About, what's wrong with these shears. Are you a shear detective? And I'm going to use this one to test, because I know this one has some problems, so it's better to show you what's going on with this one. And I'm going to show you the traditional way I've always tested shears and some things other people have showed me, and what I actually do when I'm in the salon. So with that being said, first of all, I used to always use puff tissue. Puff, plain, unscented, no lotion tissue pulled apart. That was what they used in the Arias Eichert factory way back when I first started sharpening, and over 30 years ago. And then one guy that came in for training, he had a roll of tissue hanging up there on his stuff, and I was like, no, you can't use that. You got to use puff tissue. And then when I tested it, I couldn't tell the difference. So this is a lot easier than having to pull those puff tissues apart. But the puff tissues back in the day, I used to cut them with pinking shears and put them in little squares and put them in a box, and I told them it was specially manufactured just for testing shears. Now what I do, the roll I have in my box, I took the cardboard out and I kind of have it where it's disguised so it doesn't really look like a roll of toilet paper. But this one I get, and I want you to see how thin this is. You see? You can see that shear through that paper. This is the really cheap toilet tissue like you get in the hotel rooms or they sell at the Dollar Tree. It's not anything you really would want to use. I buy this special for this. Or take the extra roll from the hotels if they've got the really cheap kind. So I cut with this dry, and always when I'm testing shears, I'll pull my thumb out, and I'll pull my thumb out because I want the least pressure possible. So I'm not wanting to, oh man, these shears are bad. Might have to get another one. Oh well, we'll make it work. So I'll put my thumb out and I cut. I'm going to have to loosen the screw on this thing. So I pull my thumb out and I cut, and you see this cuts the dry tissue. Now I see a lot of people, they will use, we're going to go down here, perm paper to test their shears on. Perm paper is the stuff that they also call it end wrap. When they do the perms, they wrap it around the ends of the hair and then put it on the curlers to keep the ends of the hair from getting oversaturated with the chemical solution, the perm solution. So this cuts this. I've also seen people use the Sanac, which is those things they put around their neck. You see these shears passed all those tests. Now what this test is telling me is if they cut, when I spray this with water and I have it damp, I don't have it dripping, because this tears so easy, this tells me if all the burrs and nicks are gone. It also tells me a little bit more about the cut. Now when I cut with this, and you see how ragged that is? So it's telling me that there's some problems. Now let's see how this works wet. Turn it this way. Now that didn't cut at all. Oh, is that cut? Yeah, it cut. So it actually passed the wet test on this. It didn't pass on that. So I want the better test on it. When I was in Germany and I was able to train at the Jaguar factory, which is the largest producer of beauty shears, or they produce the most beauty shears sold in the world, they tested on cellophane, which I thought was interesting, and dry. And let's see how these shears cut the cellophane. I'm pulling my thumb out again. And they're cutting the cellophane. Do you see that? So once again, now you might want to cut and pull. See, it has a little bit of pull. So it did catch some things, but I thought the wet tissue of those, all of those things was the best. And that's all I've used other than hair. And you can get the artificial, I mean, this is the hair that they use for the color, to match the color in the hair, which doesn't match mine at all. Not many of these that match my hair color. Thank you, Jeremiah, my friend that sends me my hair color. It's number 666, if anybody wants to know my formula. A little wicked. But this one, let's see, cutting hair. Let me bring this in a little closer. See, it pushes. So the hair is a pretty good test. It's a little bit more subjective. And if I do some point cutting, you see it's pulling. So that's another test. I always use hair if I'm testing thinning shears or texturizers. I'll use hair and I'll use the perm paper for texturizers. Not wet, dry. Thinning shears, texturizers, any of the shears with teeth. Things like, well, this is a lefty, but if it's, I can still hold it in the right hand because I don't want to use much pressure, so I would close and pull, and you see how that it grabs the hair. So I'll use hair for something like this. But as a result of the Sharpeners Jam this year, two of our educators, Ramon Eichert, which I mentioned, the Arias Eichert factory, where I first factory I've ever was involved with in training, and he used this artificial faux fur for testing the shears, and I was like, okay. And then Jeff Andrews, who also did a class at the Sharpeners Jam, he used this. And then actually there's a lady that I trained, Carrie Serta, who does nothing but her own shears and clipper blades. And she was using this, and that wasn't something I taught her to do. And the reason why, and why I bring this little piece with me now into the salons, and you can see I've used a little bit of it. It lasts a long time. I've always used this on testing clipper blades because it's just like animal fur. It's a little bit longer than my dog Bo. I don't know. If you look at his tail is sort of like this, but it's a black. And it has like two layers. It's got the thick underlayer, and then it's got like these little fine pieces, which are really finer than the hair that I was testing with. So I have two different things to test with on this fur. Now I'm bringing this in now. We're got this on our website. I'm buying the big rolls of it, which I like. This seems easier, and then we sell it by the foot. A foot should last, unless you're testing clipper blades, that should last you a while. And the reason I like this is if I'm point cutting, you see how that can catch some of this stuff with this fine hair? But it also, the thick down here is catching. But I especially like it when I'm doing a shear that's more for, well, it might be groomers, or this one actually, more hairstylists use this. But if I'm coming in here with these pointed ones and I'm cutting like, they close them, the point cutting, and then they pull out like this. And this catches some things those don't. And then also the thick part here, I might come in here and I'll close it slow and make sure it cuts all the way down. And I'll even, on these curved shears, flip them over and make sure that's cutting. And then these little fine pieces, see, it's not pushing. So now I bring this with me into the salons, and as I said, it's this piece here lasts me a while, and I've got 2 different levels of hair. Now, so in testing thinning shears, Ramon on his video was testing his thinning shears with this, which I suppose you could do. See you see it pulls a little bit there at the tip. Personally, I still like using the hair. And you see it caught where it was pulling here. It's not pulling on this one. And I don't think I think this is catching something that this one really is not a problem. But so I guess what I'm saying, I've now in my kit, I'll bring this fur, I'll bring hair, I'll bring my toilet tissue, secret testing paper, and then I also have perm paper. Do I use all of these on all the shears? No, I'm going to use the wet tissue on most everything. And if I have some reason to suspect I need to test it a little bit more, like it's a curved shear or it's a hairstylist that I know. My friend Christina that I sharpened for the other day, she always holds her shears like this. And she does only curly hair. And on hers, this was very helpful to test the way she point cuts. But general sharpening, the wet tissue, or general sharpening, the wet toilet paper. For thinning shears, these 2. And this one, if I just want a little extra checking, especially curved shears, point cutting shears, barbering shears, groomer shears, any of those type of things. So it's good to have different things that you might want to test your shears with. I don't use the cellophane, but you could. As you saw, that caught the tip of it. It's just not my preference. True story. Early on, there were I know some people use latex to test the shears on, and to me that's a little thing, latex, like a latex glove. That might be good if you're testing surgical scissors, but not beauty shears. But there was a sharpener, I don't even remember his name. This was back 25, 30 years ago. He used condoms to test his shears on. And he said he would line them up on the dashboard of his car and have them lined up there. And he said his wife knew how successful he was that day by how few condoms he came back with. I think I'd have to have a pretty understanding wife, and I think you can find something to test your shears on that might be a little bit more economical and work better and a little less shocking than condoms. If you have something interesting that you test shears on, or clipper blades, that we need to know, put the comments below. I'd be interested in which one of these things that I'm using here do you use to test shears with? What's your favorite? Hey, give me some feedback on it. And make sure that if you haven't subscribed, I know most of you watching this probably are not subscribers, but you know, hitting the subscribe and hitting the bell will bring up my videos as I post them. And I've got a lot on my channel you might want to go back and look at if you're interested in all things sharp and all things that have to do with the hair cutting, whether dogs or people. So thank you for watching.